Mom, I forgot to book your ticket. Just go home.
My father abandoned his own 82-year-old mother at an airport in front of our entire family because he claimed he forgot to book her ticket. No one argued. No one offered to stay behind. 11 members of my family simply picked up their bags and prepared to board without her. My name is Joanna Farrell. I am 31 years old, and at exactly 5:14 that morning, inside Gate B-17 at McGee Tyson Airport in Knoxville, Tennessee, I watched my grandmother Hazel clutch my late grandfather's old leather suitcase while my father looked her in the eye and said, "Mom, I forgot to book your ticket. Just go home." The entire gate went silent. The gate agent stopped typing. An elderly couple stared. Even strangers looked more heartbroken than her own children standing beside her. My grandmother slowly opened her boarding pass holder. It was empty. No ticket, no confirmation number, nothing at all. She quietly closed it without saying a single word, the way a woman closes a door she already knows will not open again. What my father did not realize was that this was not the moment he got away with humiliating his mother. It was the moment he unknowingly destroyed everything he had spent decades building, because over the next 3 weeks, a truth buried for years would come to light, and by the time it did, there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Welcome back to Scars and Stories. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by, and before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. To understand why what happened at that airport still haunts me, you need to know one thing about my grandmother. Hazel was not the kind of person people abandoned. She spent 34 years teaching 3rd grade at Maryville Elementary. After my grandfather Earl died of lung cancer, she raised my father, Richard, and my Aunt Diane completely on her own. She never remarried, and whenever someone asked why, she would smile and say, "Earl was the only man stubborn enough to love me right." She lived in the same modest Tennessee house they had bought together in 1981. Every Sunday, she was in church. Every birthday came with a handwritten card. She wrapped presents in newspaper because she thought expensive wrapping paper was wasteful, and she ironed cloth napkins before family dinners. She was the kind of woman who spent her entire life putting everyone else first, which is exactly why the small changes should have worried me sooner. The porch railing had started to lean. The gutters sagged after every storm. A leaking kitchen faucet dripped into a bowl she left in the sink overnight because she did not want to waste money calling a plumber. Even in December, she wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation and told me she preferred them, though the house felt cold enough that I kept my coat on the entire visit. When I asked my father about it, he brushed it off without looking up from his phone. "Mom's fine," he said. "She just doesn't like spending money." I believed him because he managed all of her finances, and he insisted everything was under control. I had no idea how much damage could hide behind 3 simple words. Everything's handled. Then Thanksgiving arrived. 12 of us crowded around my grandmother's dining table when my father stood, raised his glass, and said, "I've got a surprise for everyone." 3 weeks in Europe. Rome, Florence, Paris, London, all of us together as a family. The table erupted. Diane's kids pulled out their phones to look up the Colosseum. Brenda, my stepmother, started talking about shopping in Paris. Greg, Diane's husband, asked about the flights. My grandmother sat quietly at the end of the table, her eyes bright, her fork set down beside her plate. She pressed both hands flat against the tablecloth and said, "I have never left this country. Your grandpa always said we would see Paris someday." My father explained the cost structure like he was presenting a business plan. Each household would contribute their share: flights, hotels, ground transport, roughly $65,000 total for 12 people. He looked at Hazel and said her share would be about $30,000 from her retirement fund if she wanted to come. She did not hesitate. "I'm 74 years old," she said. "If not now, when?" She wrote the check that weekend, $30,000 from an account she had built quietly over 2 decades of careful saving. That same week, she pulled Earl's old leather suitcase down from the hallway closet. It was brown, cracked along one seam, patched with duct tape from a trip to Gatlinburg back in 1994. She began packing weeks early. She laid her passport on top of her folded clothes like it was something sacred, something she had waited half a lifetime to finally use. My father smiled when she handed over the check, and something about that smile stayed with me far longer than it should have. I could not name it at the time. I only knew it did not sit right. The way a note played slightly off-key does not sit right, even when you cannot say exactly which note it was. I told myself I was overthinking it. Families are complicated, I reminded myself. People smile for 100 different reasons. I would spend the next several weeks wishing I had trusted that first instinct instead of talking myself out of it. 5 in the morning, McGee Tyson Airport. December cold still clung to the parking garage concrete. 12 of us walked into the terminal dragging luggage, holding coffee, half awake and buzzing with excitement. Hazel moved slowly. She leaned on her cane with one hand and pulled Earl's suitcase with the other. She wore her good coat, the navy one she saved for church and funerals, the one that still smelled faintly of the cedar closet it lived in. We reached the check-in counter. Names were called off one by one, boarding passes printed. Richard, Brenda, Diane, Greg, the kids, me, then Hazel Farrell. The agent typed again, looked up. I don't have a reservation under that name. Hazel opened her plastic boarding pass holder. Inside was a printed itinerary, dates, cities, hotel names, but no booking reference, no confirmation number, no ticket. She looked at my father. He barely glanced at her. Mom, I must have forgotten to book yours. I'm so sorry. He shrugged, the way you shrug off a canceled lunch reservation, the way you tell someone a store is simply closed today. Just go home. We'll FaceTime you from Rome. Deanne looked away. Brenda adjusted her scarf. Greg studied the departure board like it held the answer to a question no one had asked out loud. Nobody said, "Wait, we can fix this." Nobody said, "She paid $30,000. Nobody said anything at all. The gate agent stared. An elderly couple behind us exchanged a look I will never forget. The woman shook her head slightly, like she recognized something she had seen before, something she wished she had not seen again. Hazel closed the empty boarding pass holder and put it back in her purse. Her hands trembled, but her face did not change. I looked at my father's luggage tag. Business class. They walked toward security, all 11 of them, and nobody turned around, not once. My grandmother stood by the departures board with Earl's suitcase at her side. The overhead lights buzzed. Somewhere nearby, a child was crying. The flight to Rome was on time, gate B17, boarding in 40 minutes. My boarding pass was in my right hand. I looked at it, I looked at her, and I tore it in half. My father turned around. "Joanna, what are you doing?" "I'm going home with Grandma." Diane stopped walking. "Don't be dramatic." Brenda said it without even turning her head. "Your grandma wouldn't enjoy Europe anyway. She can barely walk." That sentence hit differently than my father's had. His was calculated. Hers was careless. I am still not sure which one was worse. I picked up Hazel's suitcase. It was heavier than it should have been. She had packed everything, 3 weeks of clothes, her reading glasses case, her Bible, a small bag of butterscotch candies she always kept in her purse for the grandchildren. We walked to the parking lot together. Nobody followed us. Nobody called out. The automatic doors closed behind us, and the December air felt different than it had 20 minutes earlier, colder, sharper, like waking up from something. Hazel reached for my hand. Her fingers were thin and cold. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did," I told her, and I meant it more than I had meant almost anything in my life. We drove home in silence. I carried her suitcase inside. She sat in Earl's old chair and stared at the wall for a long time. I made her tea. She did not drink it. That night I slept in her guest room, listening to the furnace rattle every 20 minutes, counting what my father had done, and quietly counting what I was about to do. Morning came gray and cold. I woke at 6:30 to the sound of a skillet on the stove. Hazel was already in the kitchen, hair combed, house slippers on, making eggs in the cast iron skillet, black and heavy, seasoned with 50 years of use. "Your grandpa bought this at a flea market in 1973, she said. 50 years and it still cooks better than anything. I sat at the table and looked around. The kitchen had not changed since I was a child, but the details had. The fridge was nearly empty, eggs, a half-gallon of milk, butter, a jar of pickles. The medicine bottles lined up on the counter were all generic, cheaper alternatives to the name brands she used to take. The thermostat on the wall read 62 degrees in December. "Grandma, when's the last time Dad came by?" She cracked an egg into the skillet without looking up. "Oh, he checks on me, picks up the mail." "He picks up your mail?" "He said it's easier. Something about identity theft. I ate breakfast. I washed the dishes. I dried the skillet and hung it back on its hook. Then I walked to the front door and looked at the mail slot. The basket underneath was stuffed with catalogs and junk, a Bed Bath and Beyond flyer, a lawn care advertisement from 2 years earlier. But no bank statements, no financial documents, no account summaries, nothing from Social Security, nothing from the bank at all. 7 years of working in geriatric care had taught me to notice what was missing before I noticed what was wrong. Loretta Sims lived next door. She was 68, widowed, retired from the county clerk's office, and the kind of neighbor who noticed everything and said nothing unless you asked her directly. I asked. She came by that afternoon with a casserole wrapped in foil while Hazel napped upstairs, tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. Loretta and I sat on the porch in the damp afternoon air. Down the street, someone had already put up Christmas lights. "I've been worried about Hazel," Loretta said, keeping her voice low. "She used to go to Cracker Barrel every Friday with the church ladies, stopped about 2 years ago, said she couldn't afford it." "Couldn't afford Cracker Barrel?" Loretta shook her head slowly, the way people do when they have been holding something in for a long time. "Your daddy comes by every other Tuesday, takes the mail from the box before Hazel even gets up. I see him from my kitchen window. He goes inside, never in and out in 5 minutes, grabs the mail, gets back in his truck." She paused. "I don't want to cause trouble, but something's not right. I've known Hazel 19 years. She used to bring pie to every block party. Last 2 years, she brings nothing, says she's cutting back." I thanked Loretta. I washed the casserole dish. I stood at the kitchen sink and stared out at the mailbox until the sun went down, and something in my chest, some old professional instinct, began to tighten into a shape I recognized from work, but had never once expected to feel at home. That night I called Hazel's bank. I identified myself as her granddaughter and asked for account information. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You are not an authorized party on this account. The authorized signer is Richard Farrell." The tightening in my chest turned into something else entirely, something colder and more certain. The filing cabinet was in the spare bedroom, beige, dented, labeled with masking tape. Bills, taxes, medical, personal. I opened the personal drawer, behind a folder of old Christmas cards and a stack of Earl's obituary copies, and I found it. A 6-page document, notarized, dated 5 years earlier. Durable power of attorney, granting Richard Allen Farrell full financial authority over the accounts, assets, and legal affairs of Hazel May Farrell. "He said it was just in case something happened to me," Hazel said from the doorway. She was leaning on the frame, arms crossed. "So he could pay my bills if I couldn't." I read every paragraph. The language was broad: access to all bank accounts, authority to redirect mail, authority to change beneficiaries on insurance policies, authority to make withdrawals for the benefit of the principal. "Grandma, do you know your account balances?" She shook her head. "Richard handles that. He says I have plenty." I photographed every page, front and back, and put the document back exactly where I found it. She watched me the whole time. "You think something is wrong? I think we need to find out." She sat on the edge of the guest bed, hands folded in her lap, looking at the floor, then at me. "He's my son, Joanna. I know. If you are watching this and you have an aging parent, ask them right now who has power of attorney. Do they know their own account balances? Can they log into their own bank? Do not wait, and do not assume everything is fine simply because someone told you it was handled. Because by the time you notice something is wrong, the damage has usually already been done. Quietly, patiently, one small withdrawal at a time, hidden behind a lifetime of trust that nobody ever thought to question." That night I could not sleep, but I was not confused anymore. On the 4th day, I called my supervisor at the hospital and requested a week of paid leave. She did not ask why. She simply said, "Take whatever you need." I started with Social Security. The regional office put me on hold for 41 minutes before a clerk confirmed that Hazel's direct deposit was active, but the receiving account had been rerouted twice in the last 3 years, first from her original savings account to a joint account, then from the joint account to one she had never even heard of. "I can't tell you the account details unless you have authorization," the clerk said. I did not have authorization. Richard did, so I asked Hazel directly. "Can we go to the bank together just to check?" She hesitated, hands on the kitchen table, palms flat, looking toward the window. Richard said I don't need to go in anymore. He handles it online. Grandma, it's your money. You have every right to walk into that bank and ask to see your own accounts. She sat with it for a while. I did not push. I made lunch, tomato soup from a can, grilled cheese in the cast iron skillet. We ate without talking. After lunch, she stood, went to her bedroom, and came back wearing her navy coat. "Let's go," she said. "I'll drive." She sat in the passenger seat with her purse in her lap, both hands on the clasp, the whole 7-minute drive. Maryville Community Bank sat on a corner near the old hardware store. She had banked there for over 30 years. What we found inside that building made my hands shake, and I am not someone whose hands shake easily. The branch manager, Tina, was polite, professional, and visibly uncomfortable when she pulled up Hazel's accounts. "Mrs. Farrell, your primary retirement savings account had a balance of $212,000 as of 5 years ago." She turned the screen. "Current balance is $41,600. Hazel leaned forward. "That can't be right." Tina printed the full transaction history, 5 years of withdrawals, and I read them with my hands flat on the table so they would stay still. 3,000 here, 5,000 there. 12,000 for home repairs in March of 2022, the same year Hazel's gutters started sagging. 8,000 for medical expenses in August of 2023, a month when Hazel's insurance covered every single bill. The Europe trip money was the most recent, $30,000 withdrawn 8 weeks earlier, labeled travel fund. Over $140,000 gone, every withdrawal authorized by one name, Richard Farrell. Hazel sat in the vinyl chair, picked up the printout, read it once, folded it in half, then in quarters. She opened her purse and placed it next to the empty boarding pass holder. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She sat perfectly still, the way people do when the world shifts and they need a second to catch up to it. Branch manager asked if we wanted to file a report with the bank. "Not yet," I said. "We need to see everything first." We drove home in silence, Hazel staring out the passenger window the entire way, never once reaching for the radio. When I pulled into the driveway, she put her hand on my arm. "How long?" she asked. 5 years, I said. "At least." She unbuckled her seatbelt, got out, walked to the front door, and for the first time since the airport, I saw her hands stop trembling. She went to the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it, opened it again. She was not looking for food. She was looking at everything that was missing and everything that had been taken from her one careful withdrawal at a time. "I saved that money for 22 years, she said, her back to me. "Started the year after Earl died. Every paycheck, every tax refund, every summer I skipped a vacation." She turned around. "I used to calculate it every New Year's Eve." Sit at this table with a pencil and a calculator, write the total on a piece of paper and put it in the drawer. 212,000. I was proud of that number. She pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. "I trusted him because he is my son. I didn't check because I believed a mother shouldn't have to check on her own child." She paused, and her voice finally broke, just slightly. "That is the part that hurts." She went to her room and did not come out for dinner. I heated Loretta's casserole and ate alone at the kitchen table with the bank printout beside my plate, column after column, year after year, transaction after transaction, each one stamped with Richard's authorization code, each one pulling from a total that had taken 2 decades to build and only 5 years to drain completely. I washed the dish, put it on the rack, and sat in the quiet house listening to the furnace rattle. At 11 that night, Hazel came out of her room in her robe and reading glasses and sat across from me, the bank printout still between us. She folded her hands, looked at me, and said it simply, without drama, without tears. "Help me fix this, baby." Not revenge, not anger, not make him pay. Fix, restore, reclaim. 5 words that told me exactly who Hazel Farrell still was underneath the hurt. "We need a lawyer, Grandma, someone who specializes in this." She nodded slowly. "I don't want Richard in prison. This isn't about prison, it's about getting your money back and making sure he can never take any more." She looked at the printout. "Your grandpa would have burned the house down. We are not burning anything. We are going to be smarter than that." She smiled, small and tired, but real. "Earl always said he married up because he married someone smarter." We sat at that table until midnight. I started a list on a yellow legal pad. Bank records, 5 years of statements. The power of attorney document, photographed, original still in the filing cabinet. Loretta's testimony. Social Security rerouting, already documented through the phone call. and the family email hub Richard had set up years ago still logged in on Hazel's old desktop computer. Before bed, I texted my colleague Dr. Patel at the hospital, who worked in geriatric medicine and had contacts across the elder care system. "I need a referral. Elder law attorney, East Tennessee. Urgent." She texted back within 3 minutes. "Marcus Webb, best in the region. He does not lose." I saved the name, set my alarm for 7, and for the first time in 4 days, I fell asleep before midnight, not because I felt better, but because I finally had a plan. And a plan, I have learned, is the first thing that separates grief from action, the first thing that turns a sleepless night into something you can actually survive. On the 6th day, my phone buzzed with a photo from the family group chat. Richard's face in front of the Coliseum, arm around Brenda, both in sunglasses. The caption read, "Day 3 in Rome, living the dream." I scrolled further. Diane in a designer scarf at the Spanish Steps. Greg and the kids eating gelato on a cobblestone street. Brenda at a wine tasting, holding a glass up to the camera with the Tuscan hills behind her. Richard texted Hazel separately, a Trevi fountain selfie. "Miss you, Mom. Wish you were here." Hazel was sitting in Earl's chair when the message came in. She read it, then turned her phone face down on the armrest and went back to her crossword puzzle without a word. I picked up her phone after she went to bed and opened the group chat, scrolling back to the flight confirmation thread from weeks earlier. Richard had shared a screenshot of the booking, 12 names, 12 tickets. I zoomed in. Hazel's name was not on it. It had never been on it, not once, not for a single moment. Then I checked the booking details Richard had forwarded to himself separately. 3 passengers upgraded to business class: Richard Farrell, Brenda Farrell, Diane Mitchell. Cost per upgrade, $4,200. Payment method, account ending in 7841. Hazel's savings account. They were touring Europe on my grandmother's retirement savings, sipping wine she had been too frugal to buy for herself, sleeping in hotels upgraded with money she believed was sitting safely in her bank. I set the phone down, opened my laptop, and that was when I found the email that changed everything. Richard's desktop computer sat in a spare bedroom, an old Dell, slow and humming, still logged into the shared family email hub he had set up years earlier to manage household correspondence and travel bookings. Hazel never used it. She did not know the password. She never needed one. I opened the sent folder, sorted by date, and 3 months before the trip I found it. From Richard Farrell to Diane Mitchell, subject line, trip logistics. The second paragraph read, "Don't book Mom's ticket. Tell her we'll handle it. She won't even notice the money's gone." I read it twice, then a third time. Every word sat in my chest like a stone dropped into still water. Below that message was a forwarded chain, Richard to the travel agent, same week. "Upgrade Farrell party, 3 seats to business class. Charge to account ending in 7841. The same account, Hazel's savings. I opened the file Hazel kept in her purse, the printed itinerary Richard had given her, the one she slipped into her plastic boarding pass holder weeks before the trip. It looked legitimate, dates, cities, hotel names, but no booking reference, no confirmation code, no airline record locator anywhere on the page. A fake, designed carefully to make a 74-year-old woman believe she had a seat on a plane that was never hers to begin with. "I forgot your ticket." He did not forget. He never bought it. The plan was always to leave her standing at that gate. I plugged in a USB drive and saved every email, every forwarded receipt, every thread, labeling the folder evidence, and ejected the drive carefully. I closed the laptop and called Marcus Webb that same night. 2 days later in Knoxville, Marcus Webb's office sat on the 2nd floor of a brick building near Market Square. A small firm, 4 attorneys, elder law focused. The waiting room had vinyl chairs and a framed print of the Smoky Mountains. Marcus was 48, tall, gray at the temples, wearing a blue tie and reading glasses he pushed up every few minutes. His desk was neat, a yellow legal pad centered, 2 pens laid parallel. Hazel sat across from him in her navy coat. I sat beside her and placed the USB drive, the photographed power of attorney, the bank printout, and Loretta's handwritten statement on his desk. He read everything, 22 minutes of silence while he turned pages and scrolled through files. Then he looked up at Hazel. "Mrs. Farrell, this is textbook financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Tennessee Code Section 716117. He laid out the options clearly. First, file an emergency petition to revoke the power of attorney. Second, a civil suit for recovery of all misappropriated funds. Third, a referral to Adult Protective Services for a formal investigation. Fourth, a potential criminal referral to the district attorney's office. Hazel sat up straight. I just want my money back, and I want my name on my own accounts. Marcus nodded. We can do that, but your son needs to understand this is not going away quietly. Before we left, Marcus paused. Mrs. Farrell, one more question. Do you know who the current beneficiary is on your life insurance policy? Hazel shook her head. Marcus pulled it up on his screen. The beneficiary had been changed 18 months earlier. The new sole beneficiary was Richard Allen Farrell. Hazel stared at the screen. She did not blink. She did not speak. Marcus closed the file gently. We start tomorrow. The days that followed moved like surgery, precise, methodical, no wasted motion. Marcus filed the emergency petition to revoke power of attorney, followed that same afternoon by a motion for a temporary restraining order on Hazel's accounts. Hazel signed every affidavit at the kitchen table with her reading glasses on and a cup of coffee going cold beside her. The bank cooperated once they saw the court filing. Hazel's accounts were frozen, no withdrawals, no transfers, no changes without a judge's approval. She was listed as the sole authorized party again for the first time in 5 years. Our evenings settled into a pattern. I cooked dinner while Hazel reviewed documents at the table, the cast iron skillet staying on the stove most nights, grilled chicken, scrambled eggs, fried potatoes with onions. The kitchen smelled the way it used to when I was a child. You cook like Earl, Hazel said one night. Heavy on the butter, light on the patience. It was the first time she had laughed in almost 2 weeks, and I held onto the sound of it longer than I probably needed to. Meanwhile, in Venice, Richard's credit card. Link to Hazel's account was declined. He texted Hazel, Mom, something's wrong with the bank. Can you call them? Hazel showed me the message. I read it and handed the phone back. Don't respond. She put the phone in the junk drawer next to a roll of masking tape and a flashlight with dead batteries. The court accepted the petition soon after. A hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. The emergency revocation of power of attorney was granted immediately, pending review. Richard's access to every account, every policy, every document tied to Hazel May Farrell was suspended entirely. And he had no idea, still sipping wine in Florence, purchased with money he had quietly taken from his own mother. Richard called me at 6 the next morning. What's going on with Mom's bank? My card got declined twice. I looked out Hazel's kitchen window at the empty mailbox while Loretta watered her porch plants across the yard. I don't know, Dad. Have you tried calling the bank? Of course I tried. They said my authorization has been suspended. That makes no sense. I let the silence sit for a moment. That does sound strange. Joanna, I manage her finances. I need access. He hung up. 20 minutes later, he called Hazel 3 more times. She let each call go straight to voicemail without a flicker of hesitation, the same steady calm she had carried since the day we left that airport gate together. Diane called that afternoon, her voice tight in the way it gets when someone is trying to sound casual and failing. Is something wrong with Mom? She's not picking up. Grandma's fine, she's resting. Richard says his card got declined. He thinks something happened with the bank. I don't know anything about that. A pause stretched between us. Joanna, if you did something. Deanne, I'm making dinner. I'll talk to you later. That evening, Richard's tone shifted completely. No more worried son, no more confused account holder. This is ridiculous. I am the authorized signer. I need that access restored immediately. I read the text and felt nothing at all. He had managed my grandmother's finances the way a fox manages a henhouse, full access, zero accountability, and now the door had finally been closed on him. Then his last message of the night arrived. I'm coming home early. Booked a flight for Tuesday. If someone in your family is the only one with access to an elderly parent's money, and they get angry the moment you start asking questions, trust that instinct completely. You are not paranoid. They are counting on your silence, and silence is the only tool that ever really worked for them. On the 17th day, Richard's truck pulled into Hazel's driveway at 2 in the afternoon. He was unshaven, his jacket wrinkled, the tan from Rome making the circles under his eyes look darker than I had ever seen them. He knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for an answer. Mom, we need to talk about the bank. I was standing in the hallway. Come in, Dad. He looked past me toward the kitchen table, covered in organized folders with colored tabs, a laptop open to a spreadsheet, the bank printout now 3 pages long, pinned under a coffee mug. What is this? Sit down. He did not sit. What did you do, Joanna? Grandma asked me to help. Help with what? This is none of your business. Her finances are my responsibility. Grandma's finances are Grandma's responsibility. And she is right here. Hazel appeared in the hallway in her house dress and reading glasses, holding a cup of tea, looking at Richard the way you look at weather, something you accept but never negotiate with. Richard, sit down. He sat, his hands flat on the table, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the folders as if staring hard enough might make them disappear. I did not mention the emails yet. I did not mention Marcus Webb. I did not lay out the evidence, not yet. Dad, Grandma wants to understand her accounts. Can you walk us through the withdrawals? He straightened. I don't have to explain anything. I have power of attorney. I let the words sit in the air for one full beat. Had. The color left his face instantly, not slowly, not gradually, but the way a plug gets pulled all at once. What do you mean, had? The court granted an emergency order. Your power of attorney has been suspended pending judicial review. Richard stood up so fast his chair scraped against the linoleum. You went a court behind my back. I stayed seated. You took over $140,000 from a 74-year-old woman behind hers. That is not I was managing. You were managing it the way you managed her plane ticket, Dad. His face shifted, anger first, then something slower, the realization that the ground beneath him had moved and he had not felt it happen. Mom, he turned to Hazel, tell her to stop this. I was protecting your money. I moved it because the interest rates were. Richard. Hazel set her tea down on the counter. I have seen the bank statements, all of them. Mom, you don't understand how these accounts work. I understand that I had $212,000 5 years ago, and now I have $41,000. He went quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The furnace clicked on somewhere down the hall. I can explain every transaction. You can explain them to Marcus Webb, I said. Our attorney. The word landed like a stone dropped from a height. Attorney. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Mom, you don't need a lawyer. I'm your son. Hazel did not flinch. A son who forgot my plane ticket. Silence filled the room, the kind that fills a space like slowly rising water. Richard picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, did not look at the folders, did not look at the printout, did not look at me. He walked to the front door and slammed it hard enough to rattle the cast iron skillet on its hook. Through the window, I watched his truck back out of the driveway, and he was on the phone before he even reached the street. The next morning, Diane called from Paris, the rest of the family still there with 3 days left on the trip. Joanna, what is happening? Richard is losing his mind. He says you hired a lawyer. Did you know he was taking Grandma's money? A silence followed, not the kind that means surprise, but the kind that means calculation. He was managing things. Mom doesn't understand finances at that level. He took over $140,000. Diane, did you know? Another pause. Look, Richard handles the family accounts. Whatever he did, I wasn't part of it. The bank records show a $25,000 transfer to your account 2 years ago, labeled home renovation. Was that also managing Mom's money? Her breath caught audibly. That was different. Richard said Mom wanted to help with my kitchen. Did you ask Mom? Nothing. Did you? Nothing. She hung up. I set the phone on the counter and looked at the ceiling for a long moment, remembering Diane at family Christmases when I was a child, always sitting at the edge of the room while Hazel and Richard laughed together in the kitchen over the turkey. Once, when she was maybe 40, I heard her tell Greg, Mom always preferred Richard, even when he didn't deserve it. I understood the old wound. I did not forgive the theft. Those are 2 different things, and confusing them is exactly how people talk themselves into excusing what should never be excused, no matter how old the hurt underneath it happens to be. 2 hours later, Loretta texted me a screenshot from Diane's Facebook, a hastily deleted post. Family is complicated. Sometimes the people who judge you hardest are the ones who never had to struggle. I saved the screenshot and went back to work. At Marcus Webb's office, he had cleared his entire afternoon, the yellow legal pad now full. He laid out the strategy like a blueprint. Power of attorney revocation, already granted through emergency order. Civil suit filed, demanding return of $140,000 in misappropriated funds plus legal costs. Adult Protective Services notified, case investigator assigned. Life insurance beneficiary change flagged as potential fraud since Hazel never authorized the modification, and we had her sworn statement to prove it. He turned to Hazel. When does the rest of your family return from Europe? 4 days, she said. I would like to be present when you speak with them, all of them together. Hazel looked at her hands. You want to do this in my house? Your house, Mrs. Farrell, your table, your rules. She nodded slowly. Marcus prepared a binder, bank statements organized by year, email printouts highlighted in yellow. The she won't even notice chain, the business class upgrades, the power of attorney document flagged with sticky notes on every relevant clause, court orders in clear sleeves. A timeline built on a single sheet plotting 5 years of withdrawals against dates and excuses. He closed the binder and handed it to Hazel. She held it against her chest with both arms, the way you hold something that protects you from a coming storm. Mrs. Farrell, you don't have to say a word during that meeting. That's what I'm here for. She looked at him, then at me. I know, she said, but I have something to say. We drove home in the dark, Hazel holding the binder on her lap the entire way, never once opening it. The days that followed were quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into a house when 2 people are waiting for something they cannot take back. Mornings, we made breakfast together, and Hazel taught me her cornbread recipe. 2 cups cornmeal, 1 cup flour, don't let the oil smoke, and for the love of everything, don't open the oven before 25 minutes. Afternoons, we walked to Loretta's mailbox and back, Hazel moving slowly with her cane but never once stopping. She told me stories about Earl, how they met at a VFW dance in 1970, how he proposed with a ring made from a bent quarter because he could not afford a real one, how he burned the toast every single morning for 40 years and never once tried to improve. I don't hate Richard, she said on one of those walks, her breath visible in the cold air. That is what makes this hard. I hate what he did, but I raised him. You can love someone and still hold them accountable. That is what your grandpa used to say, word for word. On the porch that evening, she asked how I had noticed the discrepancies, the missing mail, the low thermostat, the empty fridge. Grandma, I work with elderly patients every day. I notice when someone is living below their means. I notice when mail goes missing. I notice when a thermostat is set 20 degrees lower than it should be. I looked at her. I notice everything. That is my job. She reached over and squeezed my hand without saying another word, and we sat there until the porch light across the street flickered on. Richard left a voicemail that night, his voice flat, controlled, performing calm. Mom, I'm coming home Tuesday. We need to talk, just the 2 of us. Hazel played the message once and deleted it without hesitation. The night before the family returned, I could not sleep. I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, the furnace kicking on and off, Hazel's bedroom dark down the hall, Loretta's porch light flickering across the street. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Richard, 2 from Diane, 1 from Brenda, whose message was careful and rehearsed. Joanna, please call me. This is getting out of hand. We can work this out as a family. I set the phone on the nightstand and pressed my palms against my eyes. This was my father, the man who taught me to ride a bicycle in the driveway of this house, who drove me to nursing school orientation and carried my boxes up 3 flights of stairs, who cried at my graduation and told me he was proud of me. And he had stolen $140,000 from his own mother and left her standing at an airport gate with an empty suitcase and a fake itinerary. People ask me if I felt betrayed. The truth is simpler and worse than that. I had spent 7 years watching elderly patients get exploited by family members. I knew the playbook, the redirected mail, the broad power of attorney, the isolation, the widening lifestyle gap. What I did not know was how much it would hurt when the person doing it shared my last name. I did not cry that night. I opened my laptop instead and reviewed Marcus's timeline one more time. Every date, every dollar, every lie laid out in careful order. Tuesday morning, 7 sharp, Marcus Webb's gray Volvo pulled into the driveway, carrying a leather briefcase and a calm that seemed to fill the entire room the moment he walked through the door. He set the evidence binder on Hazel's dining table and straightened his tie. I arranged 6 chairs around the table, Marcus at the head, Hazel to his right, me beside her, 3 chairs across for Richard, Diane, and Brenda. The same table where Hazel had hosted Thanksgiving for 30 years. The same table where my father had once stood with his glass raised, announcing a trip that was never meant to include his own mother. Hazel came out of her bedroom in her church blouse, cream with small pearl buttons, wearing her pearl earrings, hair combed back the way she always did for occasions that mattered. "If we are doing this," she said, "I am going to look like myself." I straightened the folders on the table, bank statements tabbed by year, emails printed and highlighted, the fake itinerary set beside the real booking receipt, Marcus's timeline spread across the center like a map. Hazel sat and folded her hands. "Mrs. Farrell," Marcus said, "when your son walks in, you do not have to say anything. That is what I am here for." She looked at him steadily. "I know, but I have something to say." The coffee maker beeped. I poured 3 cups and set them on the table. The house smelled normal, coffee, old wood, the faint lavender of Hazel's linen spray, normal and familiar and completely irreversible all at once. At 9:47, Richard's truck pulled into the driveway, Diane's rental right behind him. Richard came through the door first, tan, wearing a new jacket and loafers that looked like they had been purchased somewhere between Florence and London. He saw Marcus at the table and stopped in the doorway. "Who is this?" "Sit down, Dad." Diane came in behind him, carrying her purse in both hands close to her body, the color draining from her neck upward the moment she saw the folders. Brenda followed, looking at me, then at Marcus, then at the table full of documents, her mouth opening but no words coming out. "Grandma invited you here," I said. "Please sit." Richard did not move. "I am not sitting down until someone tells me who this man is." Marcus stood, buttoned his jacket with one hand, extended the other. "Marcus Webb, I represent your mother, Hazel Farrell, in the matter of financial exploitation and breach of fiduciary duty." Richard did not shake his hand. "This is insane, Mom." "Sit down, Richard." Hazel's voice was not loud. It was level, the same voice she had used for 34 years in a 3rd-grade classroom when children stopped listening. He sat, Diane sat, Brenda sat. The room fell silent except for the refrigerator and the slow tick of the clock above the stove. 6 people at a table, 3 coffee cups, 1 evidence binder. Marcus picked up his pen and opened to the first tab. "On March 12, 2021, Mrs. Farrell granted power of attorney to Richard Allen Farrell." His voice was flat, professional, the kind of voice that never needs to be raised to be heard clearly. He turned the pages year by year, line by line. 2021, $18,000 categorized as home maintenance. No home repairs were conducted that year, Hazel said. 2022, $31,000 categorized as medical expenses. "My insurance covered everything," Hazel said. 2023, $27,000 categorized as investment management. Marcus looked at Richard. "Mr. Farrell, can you provide documentation of any investment account opened in your mother's name?" Richard said nothing. 2024, $34,000. This includes a $25,000 transfer to Diane Mitchell's personal account, categorized as home renovation. Diane looked down at the table, fingers curled tightly around her purse strap. 2025, $30,000, categorized as travel fund. Marcus paused. "This is the amount Mrs. Farrell contributed toward the family trip to Europe, the trip from which she was excluded at the airport." He placed the fake itinerary on the left side of the table, the real booking receipt beside it. "This is what Mrs. Farrell received." He tapped the itinerary. No booking reference, no confirmation number, designed to look like a ticket that never existed. He tapped the receipt. "This is what was actually booked. 3 business class seats at $4,200 each, charged to Mrs. Farrell's savings account ending in 7841. He looked up. Total misappropriated over 5 years, approximately $140,000. Richard's face had gone from red to white, his hands flat on the table, knuckles the same color as the tablecloth beneath them. Diane had not looked up since the mention of $25,000. Marcus turned to the next tab. "I would like to enter into record 2 email communications." Richard shifted in his chair. "Those are private." "They are evidence, Mr. Farrell," Marcus read aloud, his voice staying even the entire time. "Email from Richard Farrell to Diane Mitchell, subject, trip logistics, 2nd paragraph." He paused, looked at the page, then at Richard. "Don't book Mom's ticket. Tell her we'll handle it." She won't even notice the money's gone. The room went completely still. Brenda's hand rose slowly to cover her mouth. You told her you forgot, I said quietly, my voice the same one I use at the hospital when I have to tell a family something they do not want to hear. But you never bought the ticket. You planned to leave her at that gate from the very beginning. Richard's jaw tightened. That is not, she was not going to enjoy it. Richard, stop talking, Brenda said, gripping his arm. Diane looked up. I did not write that email. Marcus turned a page. You are listed as a recipient, Ms. Mitchell. And you responded. He read aloud. Got it. I will tell her we are handling everything. Diane closed her eyes. Hazel had not spoken since the presentation began, her back straight, pearl earrings catching the overhead light, watching Marcus the way you watch someone doing careful, necessary work. Richard leaned forward now, elbows on the table, head down, the tan looking wrong on him suddenly, golden skin stretched over a man visibly falling apart in real time. Mom, I was trying to help you. That money was going to waste sitting in that account. Marcus did not let the statement land unanswered. Going to waste in a retirement savings account earning interest, while your mother set her thermostat to 62 degrees in December to save on utilities. Richard stood, the chair scraping backward. This is entrapment. You went through my email. That is illegal. The email was accessed on a computer owned by your mother, logged into an account you configured under her credentials. The court will determine accessibility. Richard turned to me, his voice cracking, not breaking exactly, but splintering. You did this. You turned Mom against me. I sat still. Grandma's right here, Dad. She has been here the entire time. You just stopped seeing her. He paced 2 steps to the window, 2 steps back. I was managing everything, the house, the bills, the insurance. You changed her life insurance beneficiary to yourself 18 months ago, Marcus said, without her knowledge or consent. That stopped him completely. Brenda spoke for the first time, her voice thin. Can we settle this without court? What if we give the money back? Restitution will be discussed with the court, Marcus said. Adult Protective Services has been notified and has opened an investigation. Richard's voice dropped. You called APS on your own father. I looked at him directly. I called APS on someone who exploited a vulnerable adult. That is what I do. I do it at work. I do it here. There is no version of this where family is an exception. He stood in the middle of the room, hands at his sides, the jacket from Italy hanging wrong on him now. Marcus turned to Hazel and nodded once, gently, setting his pen down. Hazel unfolded her hands and placed them flat on the table, the same way she had placed them on the Thanksgiving tablecloth 10 months earlier when Richard announced the trip that was never meant to include her. She looked at her son. I saved that money for 22 years, every paycheck. Every summer I did not take a vacation. Every Christmas I bought myself one present so I could put the rest away. Her voice was not shaking. It was not raised. It was the steadiest voice in the room. I signed that paper because you said you wanted to help, and I believed you because you are my son, because a mother should not have to check behind her own child. She paused, then leaned forward just slightly. I do not want you in jail. I do not want to never see you again, but I want my name on my own accounts. I want my mail coming to my own mailbox, and I want you to understand something. She repeated his words back to him slowly, clearly. I forgot your ticket. Just go home. She shook her head. You did not forget anything. You just thought I would not matter enough for anyone to stay. She looked at me. But someone stayed. Richard did not move. His eyes were wet, though he was not crying exactly, somewhere past crying, in the place where the body recognizes damage before the mind is ready to admit it. Diane spoke softly. Mom, I am sorry. Hazel turned to her. I will believe that when you return the 25,000, Diane. Diane closed her mouth and did not open it again. Marcus straightened his papers. The court hearing is scheduled in 9 days. You will each be served. Richard stood and buttoned his jacket, a professional habit, the mask sliding back on the way a curtain falls, automatic, mechanical, hiding nothing at all anymore. Mom, this is not over. Hazel looked at him. No, it is not. That is the point. He walked out. Brenda followed without looking at me or at Hazel, eyes forward, purse held close, walking to the truck like she was leaving a building on fire. Diane paused at the door, turned halfway back. Joanna, I waited. Tell Mom she stopped, her lips pressed together, whatever she wanted to say staying behind her teeth. She turned and left, and the door closed behind her. Marcus packed his briefcase with the same calm he had brought with him, clicking the latches and standing. Mrs. Farrell, you were remarkable in there. Hazel looked at him. I was honest. That is not the same thing. He shook my hand. I will be in touch before the hearing. The Volvo pulled out of the driveway. The street was empty. The Christmas lights on the neighbor's house blinked red and green in the gray afternoon. Hazel and I sat in the dining room, coffee cups still on the table, the binder still open to its last page. I thought I would feel better, Hazel said. Do you? She considered it for a long moment. I feel lighter. That is different from better, but I will take it. She stood, walked to the kitchen, and took the cast iron skillet down from its hook. Are you hungry? I think I need to make something. I followed her, and we cooked together in comfortable silence. 2 months later, the court ruled. Power of attorney permanently revoked. Richard Allen Farrell was ordered to repay $140,000 through a structured payment plan over 5 years, with a lien placed on his personal assets to secure the obligation. Diane was ordered to return the $25,000 she had received. Adult Protective Services substantiated the investigation, and Richard was formally flagged for elder financial exploitation under Tennessee Code Section 7016117. Hazel declined to pursue criminal charges, though the record would follow him regardless of that mercy. The life insurance beneficiary was restored to its original designation, split evenly between a scholarship fund at Maryville Elementary, where Hazel had taught for 34 years, and me. Richard sold his boat and a timeshare in Pigeon Forge to begin the first installment. He and Brenda moved into a smaller house in a subdivision on the other side of Knoxville. They have not spoken to me since the hearing, and I do not expect them to. Diane mailed a cashier's check for $25,000 with no note, no card, no phone call, just an envelope with a Nashville return address. That is the last I have heard from her. Hazel's house looks different now. New gutters. New porch railing. The kitchen faucet no longer drips. The thermostat is set to 72. The fridge is full, milk, eggs, butter, the good cheese she used to say was too expensive. She goes to Cracker Barrel with the church ladies every Friday again. Loretta brings a casserole every Sunday and says Hazel looks 10 years younger. Hazel says she feels 10 years younger. Turns out betrayal ages you, and truth takes it back, one ordinary Tuesday at a time. I drive to Maryville every Saturday, 45 minutes each way, and I do not mind it at all. Earl's leather suitcase sits in the hallway closet now, and inside it are 2 plane tickets to Paris, Hazel and me, this October. I want to see the Eiffel Tower at night, she told me last week. Earl always said it looks like it is breathing. On Saturday afternoons in Hazel's kitchen, the cast iron skillet sits on the stove, cornbread batter in a bowl, and she measures the cornmeal the same way she has for 50 years, 2 cups leveled with a butter knife. Your grandpa bought this at a flea market in 1973, she says every single time, and every single time I listen like it is the first. People tell me I was brave. I do not think staying was brave. I think leaving would have been easy. Staying was simply what was right, the only thing that ever really was. That is my story. 1 torn boarding pass, 1 cast iron skillet, and 3 weeks that changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. If someone you love needs you to stay, stay. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, comment below, share this video, and hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.